Amid the dazzling lights of a country leading the world in technology, healthcare, and science, the United States is grappling with a growing and deeply concerning health crisis that quietly embeds itself into every community, every household, and every individual. Obesity. No longer a matter of appearance or personal discipline, obesity has become a modern epidemic, spreading at an alarming rate and leaving profound consequences not just on health, but across the economic and social fabric of the nation. According to the latest data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, over 42% of American adults are now classified as obese, with around 9.2% falling into the category of severe obesity, those with a body mass index, BMI, of 40 or higher. And this issue is not limited to adults. America's children, the very future of the nation, are also entangled in this web, with nearly 1 in 9 children and adolescents aged 2 to 19 living with obesity. What's most alarming isn't just the numbers, but the underlying drivers behind them. In a country where convenience is king and modern amenities are available at every turn, Americans have become sedentary, anchored to office chairs, screens, and the comforts of a food industry that prioritizes profit over nutrition. Modern lifestyles, high-calorie diets, and inactivity have silently pushed millions toward uncontrolled weight gain. Take a typical daily menu. Burgers, fries, sugary drinks, packaged snacks, all loaded with excessive calories, yet lacking nutritional value. Compounding the problem is the lack of movement. Desk jobs, long commutes, and screen-based entertainment have drastically reduced physical activity, while poor sleep hygiene further disrupts metabolic balance and promotes fat accumulation. We must also examine the influence of the food industry, which operates like a tireless beast. Through aggressive marketing strategies, ultra-processed foods dominate grocery aisles, advertisements flood television and digital platforms, and children, along with low-income communities, are especially targeted. As a result, people have easier and cheaper access to foods that taste good, offer quick satisfaction, but carry long-term health dangers. Beneath this, obesity reveals itself as a social injustice. Many African American, Hispanic, and low-income communities in the U.S. live in food deserts, areas where access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and nutritious food is severely limited. In these regions, families are often left with no choice but to consume cheap, highly processed, calorie-dense foods simply because healthier options are either unavailable or unaffordable. Beyond diet and environment, emotional and psychological factors play a major role. In a society full of pressure and fast-paced living, stress, anxiety, and depression have become breeding grounds for emotional eating, consuming food as a way to cope with inner turmoil. This leads to a vicious cycle. The more one eats for comfort, the more weight is gained. The more weight is gained, the more shame and emotional stress follow, fueling the cycle even further. Of course, genetics and hormones cannot be ignored. Some individuals have genetic predispositions that make it easier to gain fat, while others suffer from hormonal imbalances such as hypothyroidism or polycystic ovary syndrome, all of which make managing weight much more difficult. A crucial turning point came in 2013 when the American Medical Association, AMA, officially recognized obesity as a chronic disease. This was a major shift in how the medical community approached the issue. Obesity was no longer seen as the result of laziness or lack of willpower, but as a complex condition requiring long-term medical attention, just like diabetes, heart disease, or high blood pressure. Assigning a formal disease code, ICD-10 E66, allowed insurance to cover weight loss treatment, dietary counseling, and even bariatric surgery for qualified patients. Looking at the broader picture, one disturbing question arises: who is most vulnerable to obesity? Statistics show that children from low-income families, African American and Hispanic populations, and residents in the southern and Midwestern U.S. are most at risk. These regions often lack investment in public health, health education, and access to fresh, nutritious food, making them fertile ground for obesity to take root and thrive. Even more frightening are the projections. According to a 2022 study by Harvard University, if strong interventions are not implemented, by 2030, nearly half of all American adults will be obese, and around 25% of them will be severely obese. This is not just a warning about public health, it's a red flag for rising healthcare costs, reduced workforce productivity, and a diminished quality of life for an entire generation. Obesity, often reduced to a number on a scale, is in fact a profound national issue, demanding attention at every level. It reflects an imbalance between material advancement and human wellness, between technological convenience and human responsibility. And if swift collective action is not taken, this silent epidemic may continue to consume the very fabric of America's future. While modern society continues to advance in material wealth and technology, a silent health crisis is spreading across the United States. Obesity. No longer a matter of appearance or aesthetics, obesity has become a true disease, a silent killer that is destroying the health of millions from the inside out. When body weight exceeds healthy limits, it doesn't just make a person feel heavier, it opens the door to a multitude of dangerous conditions that directly affect both quality of life and life expectancy. Among the most serious consequences, cardiovascular disease stands out as the leading threat. When excess body fat accumulates in the body, especially visceral fat around internal organs, the heart is forced to work much harder to pump blood throughout the system. This pressure causes high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, and over time, dramatically increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Obese individuals are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer from heart-related conditions compared to those with a healthy weight, a statistic too serious to ignore. Following close behind is type 2 diabetes, a chronic condition deeply tied to excess weight. As the body becomes resistant to insulin, glucose is not absorbed properly into cells and instead builds up in the bloodstream, leading to prolonged high blood sugar levels. Alarmingly, more than 90% of Americans with type 2 diabetes are overweight or obese. And once diagnosed, patients face a range of complications: kidney damage, vision loss, nerve disorders, and in extreme cases, amputations or death if left untreated. Obesity also takes a heavy toll on the brain. Excess body fat increases the likelihood of blood clots and narrows the arteries that supply the brain, raising the risk of strokes. Furthermore, research shows that obesity may impair memory, cognitive function, and increase the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, especially concerning an aging U.S. population.
A lesser known but equally alarming consequence is the link between obesity and cancer. Fat cells produce excess estrogen, inflammatory compounds, and growth factors that encourage abnormal cell development. Studies have shown that obesity raises the risk for at least 13 different types of cancer, including breast, liver, colon, pancreatic, and endometrial cancer. In other words, excess fat doesn't just slow the body down, it may also fuel the growth of cancer. The liver, the body's vital detoxification organ, is another victim of obesity. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, a condition where fat builds up in the liver, has become increasingly common among obese Americans. It causes inflammation and liver cell damage that can lead to cirrhosis, liver failure, or even liver cancer. What's even more concerning is that NAFLD often presents no clear symptoms in its early stages, making it difficult to detect until it becomes severe. From a respiratory perspective, many obese individuals suffer from sleep apnea, a disorder in which breathing stops and starts repeatedly during sleep. Excess fat around the chest and neck compresses the airway, making it harder to breathe at night. This leads to poor sleep quality, daytime fatigue, decreased alertness, and a higher risk of hypertension and heart disease. The skeletal system also suffers under excess weight. Every step, every movement becomes more difficult when the joints, especially the knees, hips, and spine, are forced to bear extra loads. As a result, conditions like osteoarthritis, chronic back pain, and spinal degeneration become more common even among young people with high BMI levels. Overall, obesity doesn't just lead to one illness, it triggers a cascade of interconnected diseases commonly referred to in medicine as metabolic syndrome. This includes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high blood sugar, and abdominal obesity, all coexisting and compounding each other, significantly increasing the risk of death. Obesity never travels alone. It always brings along dangerous companions. Beyond physical health, the emotional and mental impact of obesity runs deep. Obese individuals often suffer from low self-esteem, shame, anxiety, and depression. Many face social stigma, discrimination, and are excluded from educational or professional opportunities because of their appearance. Children who are overweight are more likely to be bullied, ostracized, and experience psychological challenges that can affect their development. Adults, in turn, may withdraw from social interaction and become isolated and stuck in a negative feedback loop of emotional eating and continued weight gain. In summary, obesity is a total body invader. It changes not only how a person looks, but also silently damages every organ, from the heart to the liver, the lungs to the brain, from joints to the soul. This is no longer a simple health concern. It is a societal alarm bell. Combating this requires us more than just doctors and specialists. It requires each individual to take charge of their own habits, make healthier lifestyle changes, and recognize obesity as a serious medical condition that it truly is.
When people talk about obesity, the focus is often on its medical consequences, the health conditions, the hospital visits, and the rising numbers on national health charts. But beyond the physical strain and statistical figures, obesity quietly erodes something far more personal and valuable: quality of life. And when tens of millions of Americans live with it every day, the effects extend far beyond the individual. They ripple outward, impacting the entire economy and the long-term health of the nation. For those living with obesity, daily life is filled with physical limitations, chronic fatigue, and emotional distress. It's not just about tighter clothes or breathlessness on the stairs. It's the constant discomfort when moving, the joint pain, and the invisible weight of shame and self-consciousness. Many people withdraw from social activities, avoid public spaces, and slowly isolate themselves from their communities. over time, this isolation chips away at mental health, fueling a vicious cycle of stress, emotional eating, and further weight gain. Children and adolescents with obesity face even more heartbreaking challenges. They're often bullied, excluded, and left behind in group activities. This social rejection leads to depression, disordered eating, and poor academic performance. Worse, it shapes how they see themselves. As they grow up carrying a sense of insecurity and self-doubt, their adult life, whether in education, career, or relationships, began under the shadow of low self-esteem and trauma. But the cause of obesity isn't just an emotional one, it's deeply economic. In the workplace, obesity is a major factor in reduced productivity. Obese individuals are more likely to miss work due to chronic conditions like back pain, heart disease, or diabetes. Even when present, they often experience fatigue and lower concentration. According to research, the obesity results in hundreds of millions of lost work days each year in the U.S., a staggering figure that reflects the broader economic damage. Discrimination adds another layer. In professional environments, those who are overweight are often perceived as less competent or less driven, regardless of their actual skills. These prejudices created negative feedback loop, few opportunities, less motivation, and lower earnings, leading to an overall decline in professional development and income levels. On the national level, obesity is one of the most expensive drivers of healthcare costs in the United States. Each year, the country spends over $170 billion treating obesity-related diseases, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, and liver conditions. And that's just direct medical costs. When factoring in lost productivity, long-term care, insurance costs, and earlier retirement, the real figure could exceed $300 to $350 billion per year. For many families, this means higher insurance premiums, more out-of-pocket expenses, and less financial stability. The healthcare system itself also suffers. Hospitals become overloaded. Doctors face increasingly complex cases, and procedures take longer and are riskier. Surgeries for obese patients are more expensive, more complicated, and require longer recovery periods. In the post-COVID era, where the healthcare infrastructure is already strained, obesity has become a compounding crisis that can no longer be ignored. At a national scale, the consequences of obesity impact public budgets, insurance systems, social welfare, education, and workforce sustainability. It slows economic growth, increases dependency, and reduces the average life expectancy. A healthy nation is the foundation of long-term prosperity, but when obesity spirals out of control, it weakens that very foundation, redirecting funds, energy, and intention away from innovation and growth toward damage control. Perhaps most troubling, obesity also reflects and deepens social inequality. Low-income individuals are more likely to become obese due to limited access to healthy food, safe exercise environments, and quality healthcare. Meanwhile, high-quality weight loss services, organic food or gym memberships are often financially out of reach. In this way, obesity becomes a mere societal division, not just a health condition, but a symptom of a broken system where the poor pay the price with their bodies. In the end, obesity is not just a personal issue, it's a systemic crisis. It drains physical health, undermines mental well-being, weakens the workforce, and consumes public resources. Combating requires more than hospital beds and medications. It demands public policy reform, corporate responsibility, better education, and above all, empowered individuals. A truly healthy nation is one that where every citizen has the opportunity to live actively, work productively, and feel valued, regardless of body size or social economic backgrounds. Faced with the alarming rise of obesity nationwide, the United States has been forced to recognize that this is not merely a medical concern. It is a multi-dimensional crisis with profound effects on public health, the economy, and the very structure of society. To combat this growing epidemic, the country has implemented a series of comprehensive strategies, combining public policy, medical interventions, community education, and technological innovation. However, the success of these efforts demands long-term consistency, nationwide coordination, and real participation from individuals at every level of society. One of the most significant efforts at the government level has been the early and large-scale policy interventions. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, have launched widespread nutrition education campaigns across television, social media, and schools. A notable initiative was the mandatory calorie labeling in restaurants and fast food chains, an important step to help consumers make more informed and healthier choices. Education also plays a crucial role. The U.S. government has integrated health and nutrition into the school curriculum, particularly at elementary and middle school levels. Children are now taught how to read food labels, prepare healthy meals, and adopt active lifestyles. Programs like Healthy Eating Week, cooking classes, and required physical education are not only informative, but also help instill lifelong habits in the next generation. In the medical field, the U.S. has begun adopting a multidisciplinary approach to obesity treatment. Instead of relying solely on general practitioners, patients now receive support from the team that may include metabolic specialists, nutritionists, psychologists, physical therapists, and even bariatric surgeons. This reflects a deeper understanding. Obesity is not just about calories. It is a complex disease tied to emotions, behaviors, hormones, and environment. Each patient needs an individualized care plan and long-term, judgment-free support. Alongside nutrition counseling, the U.S. has approved the use of new generation anti-obesity medications, such as Wegovy and Ozempic, which help regulate hunger signals and insulin response for sustainable weight loss. For individuals with severe obesity who don't respond to traditional treatment, bariatric surgery, such as gastric bypass, has become an increasingly accepted solution, offering rapid reductions in BMI and lower risk of obesity-related complications. And another promising development is the integration of digital health technology. From smartwatches that count steps and calories to mobile apps that track meals and send fitness reminders, technology has made weight management more interactive, accessible, and user-friendly. Many platforms even offer remote consultations with doctors and dietitians, helping to break down geographic and financial barriers to healthcare access. At the community level, many U.S. cities have invested in public parks, walking paths, sports courts, and free exercise areas, encouraging citizens to move more. Public awareness campaigns like Let's Move, spearheaded by former First Lady Michelle Obama, and tools like My Plates, which replaced the outdated food pyramid, aim to reshape how Americans think about food, fitness, and personal health choices. However, no matter how good the policy, change will only happen if it starts with individuals. The battle against obesity isn't only fought in government offices or hospitals. It begins with small daily decisions. Choosing
vegetables over fried food, taking a walk instead of sitting still, or going to bed on time instead of staying up with screens. This is how awareness turns into action, how passive behavior becomes proactive choice, and how personal responsibility transforms into shared community effort. Ultimately, to truly tackle the root of the obesity epidemic, the United States must continue to invest in education, preventative health care, and removing social barriers to nutrition and physical activity. A successful strategy will not be a quick fix, but a sustained journey, one where every citizen feels supported, empowered, and surrounded by environments that promote healthier living.
Obesity in the United States is no longer just a medical phenomenon. It has become a comprehensive national crisis, deeply rooted in every layer of society. It threatens public health, diminishes quality of life, imposes staggering economic costs, and highlights glaring inequalities in access to healthcare, nutrition, and education. We've seen the full picture: soaring obesity rates among both adults and children, the severe health consequences, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, depression, and cognitive decline. Obesity does more than harm the body. It steals joy, limits opportunities, shortens lifespans, and when it spreads on a national scale, it compromises the future well-being of the entire country. Yet there is hope. The United States is gradually but decisively responding with public health policies, school-based nutrition education, weight management technologies, multidisciplinary treatment models, and efforts to reshape community environments. But real change will only come when individuals recognize the importance of their own health and when society collectively builds a new culture, one where healthy eating, regular exercise, and mental well-being become the norm, not the exception. The fight against obesity is not a sprint. It is a long-term journey that demands patience, determination, and collaboration between the government, communities, and each citizen. If successful, the reward is not just a drop in the national waistline, but the rise of a stronger, healthier, and more vibrant generation, and a more resilient America for decades to come.